Okay guys, tonight we're going to look at China and the West. Look at those fancy uniforms. Now, as we've just finished talking about imperialism in Africa, we need to ask the question, will imperialism continue in Asia? And the easy answer is yes and no. What? In certain parts of Asia, European countries have colonies, the most famous being England controlling India. However, France has control of Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. The Dutch have control of modern Indonesia. And Spain has control of the Philippines. So as you can see, there are several European colonies in Asia. However, the big question is, will China fall to European imperialism? Dun dun dun. Now, as you recall, China has a history of feeling better than any other culture, and they have good reason to. Remember, they invented all of these things like paper and the compass and gunpowder. They have famous dynasties. They've had the most people for a very long time. They have philosophies they've created like Confucianism and legalism and Taoism. So they have a reason to feel better than everyone else. However, as you remember, for this reason, they didn't feel like they had to trade with others or accept what other countries had. So, as we predicted, they were starting to fall behind, especially Europe. The Qing dynasty, which was the last dynasty, as you recall, limited all foreign trade to the city of Canton in southern China. While anyone could trade with China there, the only thing they're going to accept in large numbers is the thing they don't have, which is silver, which the Europeans are currently mining in the Americas. Now, if you remember, England sends a trade delegation to China in 1793 asking for help. England wants to keep trading with China, they just don't want to send silver anymore. Silver's expensive. We know that Chinese products like silk and porcelain and tea are very famous in Europe, and in England they're demanded. English customers want to keep using these things, so English merchants are really trying to keep that happening. They just don't want to pay so much money for it. They would rather trade things like English manufactured goods, like textiles or even porcelain. Now, as you remember, China denied this trade request, saying they had everything they needed and they didn't want anything that England made. So England vowed revenge. Drugs. And this comes in the form of opium, which is a natural plant found in India, which is a British colony. And opium is basically a flower that contains morphine, and it can be processed into illegal drugs like heroin. So the English will start sending opium to China. Now, England has outlawed opium, China has outlawed opium, and so England sending opium to China is highly illegal. As you can imagine, China isn't real thrilled with this decision. First, the buyers of opium become highly addicted to it, and it completely kills any productivity that they have. They simply want to sit around all day long in what are called opium dens and lay around and relax. This is a picture of an opium den in China in the 1800s. As you can see, they're not getting a lot of work done. Now, secondly, this is bad for China economically because the Chinese merchants are in such demand for opium to sell to their buyers that they are willing to give England silver for the opium. That's right, folks. The same silver that England gave to China for things like silk, porcelain, and tea is now going back to England. And lastly, since this was an illegal trade item, China cannot tax it, so they can't get any money from it. Now, China is really upset by this because opium's always been illegal, but they start to ask England in certain ways to stop it. The person in charge of this is the Trade Commissioner of Canton. His name is Lin Zheju. Here's a picture of Lin. Hi, fella. Now, the first thing he does is try to scare people in Canton to stop using it. So as it says here, he's threatening to punish anyone who's caught using it or caught selling it. Secondly, he says if he finds it, he's destroying it, which includes if it's on a foreign ship. And then lastly, he tries to guilt England into stopping it. And he writes Queen Victoria this nice letter that says, the Chinese send England things that make England better, things that improve England, like silk, porcelain, and tea, things that are not habit-forming or addictive. And then he says, and you send us an illegal drug. And then he goes further and he says, if it's illegal in England, then why are you sending it to us? So he's really trying to put pressure and guilt England into stopping sending opium. Now, as you can guess, England replied that if you don't like it, stop buying it, which isn't really fair because the Chinese can't stop buying it because they're addicted to it. So England is playing a bit dirty right now. Responding to this, Lin Zexu decides to put his money where his mouth is and to seize British opium. And so he goes on British ships. He basically arrests the ship captains and keeps them prisoner, and then he destroys all the opium. In all, he destroyed about 3 million British pounds worth of opium. This brings up an interesting point. How do you destroy it without making everyone high from it? There is a rumor that he actually burned it, which would have been terrible because there had been the smoky haze over the city. But instead what he did was he put a chemical in it and then he poured it into the river and it washed out into the sea, which can't be good for the fish. Now obviously England's response was war! Now if we look at this map of China, we can see really where England will take the fight to the Chinese. So we need to start by looking at the southern port of Canton, which is called Guangzhou today, and also up the coast to a city called Nanjing, which is an important city that's near Shanghai, and this is sort of the mouth of the Yangtze River. Now, the British will send sepoys to China. Remember, sepoys are British soldiers who are living in India. Okay, these are Indian natives, and we talked about a few years later they will have a rebellion of their own, but this is before that. And they will also send a modern navy with iron sides to its ships, with steam power, with modern cannons. China doesn't stand a chance. Now, China believed that cities like Canton were safe because, as you can see here, Canton isn't exactly on the coast. You have to sort of go up the river to get to it. In fact, the British had some shallow-hulled boats, which meant that they could actually go in shallow water, and with steam power, they could easily get to Canton. So China's gamble did not pay off. Now take a look at this picture, this painting rather. You can see really the difference in technology of the day, okay? Look right here, this is a Chinese junk, a traditional Chinese boat. Now look right here, this is a British steamship, okay? It's a gunboat. And as you can see right here, when the two meet, one wins. Now the peace treaty that China had to sign in 1842 was humiliating for China. The first thing, they had to open 5 trading ports, meaning they had to lose their trade monopoly on the outside world. Secondly, they had to pay England a lot of money for all the opium they destroyed, which is 3 million British pounds, and all the cost of England going to war. Thirdly, China had to give England extraterritoriality, which is an incredible word. What this means is that if a British man or British woman is arrested in China, he or she cannot be punished or jailed in China. Instead, he or she will be sent back to England to be punished. Okay? So as you can imagine, an English judge will punish an Englishman or an Englishwoman a lot less than a Chinese judge would. So it really takes away a lot of power from China. Fourthly, China had to give England preferred trading rights, meaning they had to lower their tariffs on British goods. And lastly, China gave England Hong Kong. Now, I want you to look at these 5 things, and I want you to write down which of the 5 was the worst for China. I'll ask you this in class tomorrow. So, the big picture moving forward. How does this major defeat to what was supposed to be a barbarian, a lesser and inferior power, England, how does this change China moving forward? I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.